Caleb Smith House sits on the village green opposite the Presbyterian Church, right in the heart of Smithtown. Actually, the house was brought here in 1955, so its history did not take place on this particular location, but it goes way back in time. The history of the house and how it was built is a very interesting one, and I'd like to share that with you. This large house was built in 1819 by Caleb Smith II, a great-great-grandson of Richard Smith, the founder and patentee of Smithtown. Although not very large by today's standards, the house was an impressive and substantial home in 1819. When Caleb Smith built his house in Comac, we know that his new house actually had a pre-existing house incorporated into it. There is exterior evidence provided by the window spacing that the original home was only 2 or 3 bays wide, and that Caleb added on to the house, doubling its size. The internal framing of the house provides additional evidence that this was done. The original part of the house has framing that was hand-hewn, while the addition has a heavy frame that was sawn on a sawmill. The original house was most likely constructed sometime prior to the Revolution. This makes it one of the original homes in the Comac area. An interesting feature about the Caleb Smith house is that it was built in a Georgian style, and one of the aspects of the Georgian style of architecture was that whatever elements you had on the left side of the house, you tried to repeat them on the right side of the house so that they all matched up and there was balance. When he put the wing on this house, the windows aren't spaced quite right. And that's one of the things that you can see was difficult to do, was to go back and replicate one side exactly as the other was. When he built the house, Caleb cleared some 250 acres of land to be worked as farmland. It is reasonable to assume that he did not clear the land. He certainly must have had help from his relatives, friends, and neighbors. It is quite probable that some of the laborers that Caleb Smith employed on his farm in Comac were slaves that his family had owned, whom he had inherited and manumitted. We do know that on his property in Comac, Caleb Smith had another small house built for his servants who were former slaves. After the death of Caleb II in 1831, the house passed to his son Caleb III. He found in the attic a deed dated July 14th, 1659, that went from the Indian sachem Wyandanch to Lyon Gardner, giving him all the Nessaquag lands. The deed was endorsed by David Gardner, son of Lyon, to Richard Smith on October 15th, 1664. The reason that's important is because that deed that he found was the one in which Wyandanch passed the ownership of the lands to Lyon Gardner, and subsequently Gardner gave those same lands to Richard Smith. And we have David Gardner, Lyon Gardner's son, his endorsement on the deed, which shows that the deeds were transferred from the Indians to Lyon Gardner and then to Richard Smith. And that's how he really got control and ownership of the Smithtown lands. And the deed was found in the attic of this house, which makes it astounding. By the turn of the century, Robert Bailey Smith, Caleb Smith II's grandson, owned the homestead. It continued to look much as it had when Caleb owned it, and the 12,000 acres of property that surrounded it were intact. But in 1904, Robert Bailey Smith sold this house and property to Carl S. Burr, Jr., an assemblyman and well-known horseman who had the Carl Burr horse training farm in Comac. This conveyance marked the first transfer of lands out of the Smith family for almost 250 years. So if you talk about Smithtown and who owned the lands in Smithtown, it's really incredible that the Smith family descendants were sitting on top of a huge pile of real estate and really hadn't divested any of it. The house was to be demolished in 1955. It sat on that location in Comac until then. The Mayfair developers had acquired the property and were building that whole development known as the Mayfair development and the shopping center known as the Mayfair Shopping Center. Mr. Joseph Rohde, the developer, graciously spared the house, and as a memorial to her parents, the late Miss Anna Blydenberg, a great-granddaughter of Caleb Smith II, generously provided the funds needed to move the house to its present site. And that's what's also amazing about this house, is it was picked up from its original location in Comac, and it was moved all the way over here to the middle of Smithtown. The Caleb Smith House is used by the Historical Society today as a depository for its collections. We have a lot of space for storage in the house on the 2 floors and the attic, and we can keep our collections here. And we use some of the larger rooms in the downstairs for exhibits.
This house used to be the headquarters for the Smithtown Historical Society. And in fact, it's where the collections have always been stored. They've always been here in this building. We actually don't only have archival materials. We don't just have paper-based documents and letters and deeds and so forth here. We also have physical artifacts. And the artifact collection is stored upstairs. We have another location down here for the research materials, which includes a large collection of land deeds, collections of letters and diaries and personal correspondence from the 19th century, maps, architectural blueprints and designs, and a very good collection of prints, paintings, and other artwork. We also have a photograph collection that is approximately 3,000 items, and it includes all mediums of photography, a lot of photographs of people from the community from the mid-19th century on. Any one of these resources on their own is pretty strong, but to have the whole combination of that, it's a really wonderful community resource, and especially with the library right next to us, it's really, I think, a great opportunity for people to go back and forth between the 2 locations when they're doing family research or research on any number of topics about the community. What we have here is slightly different than the Richard Handley collection of Long Island Americana next door. Their collection has wonderful resources on Smithtown, but it also is an incredible collection of Long Island materials. And so it's not just specific to this area. Basically, I think the 2 institutions work together very well because people can get their research started in either location and move back and forth between the 2 spaces. And I work very well with the librarians next door in order to accomplish people's research needs. We have a museum software past perfect database, and we have been entering material into that software over the last couple of years. It's a long-term process. One of the other things that we've been doing is transcribing old letters and old documents from the Blydenberg and Smith families. And that process in particular is very important because We have quite a lot of handwritten material from the 1700s, 1800s that quite simply has never been transcribed before. We sort of know the big picture, but we've made a lot of fascinating and interesting discoveries in the process of looking at this, of exactly what's written in them. You know, the reason that we have this archive here, the reason that we maintain it is multifold. I think that, first of all, to have a secondary interpretation of the past, to always rely on what different historians from the community say happened, rather than being able to turn to the original source itself and make up your own mind. It's very important to have those actual early documents, because interpretations change over time, because they are a link to that past, and they're the way in which we're able to actually connect to the people that came before us. It's a powerful and important thing for us to continue to hold on to these and to preserve them for the people that come after us and the generations that come after us. It's a kind of an unbroken chain, and I think it's important for us to value it as a community, not just as the historical society, but as this is really Smithtown's past that we're handing down to the next generations.
I think the fact that it's located front and center in the community, and it's a building that everybody sees who goes by on 25A or Middle Country Road, it just points out the fact that this is the town of the Smiths, and here is descendants of the Smith family who actually built this house, and then later generations of descendants of that same Smith sought to preserve it for all time.